Hi, it's Bobby from Bobby's Baking Blog, and these are my Peony Cupcakes. This one is done with a rolling pin, brush embroidery, and doing a ruffle type of border. And this is done with a 50-50 gum paste fondant mixture with kind of a pretty center and frilling the each peony leaf. So I will show you how I did them. Alright, so I've rolled this out to about 1/8 of an inch because I already have fondant covering my cupcake. I don't want this to be too thick. And I need it to be thick enough that I can take the rolling pin to it. So I'm going to take this peony rolling pin using constant even pressure to my fondant. And I have added just a little bit of gum tarragon to the fondant, and I will show you why in just a second. And I'm going to look and see, because I'm coming in with my circle cutter, and this one has given me the best imprint. So I'm going to take my circle cutter, I'm going to twist so I get a nice clean cut. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm about to make a little bit of noise because I have to put it back in the bag. I'm going to take my offset spatula, and what I'm going to do is I have these neat, and any circle that you have or half sphere that you have, whether it's a little styrene ball or whatever, will work. And what you want to do is take your little round piece of fondant that you've impressed with your peony rolling pin, and very carefully, without smoothing out the impression you've made, let it dome. And this needs to dome for about 20 minutes, just like that. And you can put it, I'm going to put it off to the side for now. And that is why the gum tarragon is in there. I have one already made up so that we can just begin. And you can attach it with royal icing. I'm actually going to make a little ruffle border and attach it with the ruffle border. Now, when doing a ruffle border, I'm using a 104 Wilton tip for this. You want to start with your widest end pointing down, and you just want to, with even pressure, releasing a little bit as you come back up, ruffle your border out. Now, because I am going to be adding my fondant dome to this, I'm going to do something a little bit different. If you're going to be ruffling a cookie and you're not going to be adding anything domed on it, you don't have to do this. But I'm going to almost do like a brush embroidery. I just want to smooth it out so that when I do add my dome, I don't have gaps. You don't have to do this to ruffle. This is just something that I'm doing so that the dome does not sit awkwardly. So we're just going to go around the cupcake, ruffling back and forth. And the ruffle is a neat decorating technique for all sorts of things. For a clown's collar, if you were going to make like a clown cake, to do as a border on a cake, or as a cookie, or a blanket for a little bassinet cookie. You can do so much with this particular tip. I love working with different ruffle tips, and I have special ruffle tips. I actually did one for a buttercream cupcake just recently, if you want to take a look at that with a number 50 ruffle tip. But right now I'm just working with the normal petal tip 104. Depending on the size of what you were working on, if I was on a small cookie, I would go down maybe to a PME 1 or a PME or you go down to Wilton 101, just depending on what you're doing. You just want to ruffle all the way around. And like I said, I am stopping in between only so that I can go ahead and smooth out the back end. So when I add that dome, like I said, it won't be odd and lay crooked. And as long as you start at the same place and come back to the same place, your ruffles should be fairly even. So this is a really easy border to do. It doesn't take very long as I have enough royal icing in my bag. And I have colored this with a little bit of Sugar Flare Dusty Pink to match my fondant. And I am going to be painting the ruffles. You want to keep your ruffles a little bit straight. That one, a tad cockeyed, but I fixed it when I went in to smooth it out. So as you can see, I am not piping towards me, I'm more piping away from me. Rather than starting closest to me, I'm starting furthest away from me. And depending on which direction you want to go, you can get all sorts of neat little designs. You can go up the side and get almost a layering technique. I'm just going to go back and wet this just a little bit so that when I add this dome it will stick. So we're going to bring in our dome, and I'm going to center it carefully so I don't squish my ruffles. You can see that's not centered. There we go. That's better. And just gently push down. Your ruffles will smush out a little bit, but they'll stay ruffled. The next thing that we're going to do is we're just going to do some brush embroidery. So start at one end of your cupcake. Depending on how you cut, you might have 2 flowers, you might have 1. It looks like I have 2. So I'm going to brush embroidery this first. And I am working with a stiff consistency royal icing and a number 2 Peony tip. I was working with a stiff consistency royal icing for the ruffles. And you've seen me brush embroider several times, so I'm just going to show you a little bit of this so you're not too bored. With brush embroidery, you do not have to be as precise as you do with all your other piping. You just have to zigzag. And with a very light and damp brush, bring that royal icing down towards the center. Start on your outside and work your way in. So we'll do 1 full row so you can see. And this is raised because the design is raised. So it will accentuate the peony petals. And obviously this is just an impression of a peony. The other cupcake that you saw was a more realistic peony. So I'm just finishing up the brush embroidery. I've done the whole other side. At this point, the only thing you really need to be careful about is your little ruffles. You don't want to damage them with your hands. They're not quite dry yet. It will probably be, I would say, a good 3 hours before I would paint on these guys. And by the time your ruffles are completely dry, so will your brush embroidery be completely dry. The brush embroidery obviously is going to dry much faster and before your ruffles. I chose Ruffles just because it is a flower that this design is. It's actually, like I said, a peony rolling pin. It's one of my favorite impression rolling pins. And peonies are one of my favorite flowers. We've had several bushes in our garden and every house we've had. And I don't know if you know a lot about peonies, but they only bloom in June. And they get bigger, almost double the size each and every year. So peonies are a great thing to put in your garden. Back to the brush embroidery, like I said, it really has, you don't have to worry about being too precise. The only thing you want to make sure is that you're on top of the impression lines. Other than that, you just want to zigzag. It doesn't matter how precise you are. The other thing that you want to watch out for is the water consistency in your brush. You don't want too much water in there because you'll dilute your brush embroidery, and if you don't have enough, you won't be able to bring down that beautiful brush embroidery look. So we just have that little teeny bit left over here. And then we can go and paint. I have another cupcake standing by, anxiously waiting for me to show you how to paint it, so you don't have to wait the 3 to 4 hours. Obviously you wouldn't be waiting 3 to 4 hours, but you don't have to wait to see me do it. So let's head to the other end of the table and I'll show you how we decorated that. And we'll leave this guy to dry. So in my palette I have mixed Peony Pink, and it's actually called Peony Luster Pink, and Fairy Pink because I felt the Peony Pink was a little bit too intense for this cupcake. And the first thing I want to do is just get inside here to the little like stamens of the peony and just color them. And you could have, before you brush embroidery, you could have just taken a little bit of peony or fairy pink luster dust and brushed it all over your cupcake just to give it a little bit of a shimmer. But this is going to add quite a bit of color, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to make sure I know I had 2 flowers in here. No. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is you're going to brush your ruffles. You're going to paint your ruffles with the Peony Pink. And you're just going to go around and get each and every little ruffle. With your Peony Pink mixture, mixed with the Fairy Pink. Since peonies come in all different colors, white is actually one of my favorite colored peonies, but it wouldn't be much fun to show you a white peony on a cupcake. It would be awfully hard for you to see what I was doing. So I'm going to finish going around, and then when we get into the brush embroidery, I will come back. So we're going to go ahead and brush paint our brush embroidery. And on this, I added a tad more of my Fairy Pink to the Peony Pink just to lighten it up a hair. I felt it was maybe a little too dark to come up in here. And I didn't want it to be as dark as my stamens. It looks like I need just a little bit more alcohol. So and you've seen me do this before, to paint on your brush embroidery, let me make sure I've got a nice little mixture here. You want to start again with your back, and if you go over, you can see I'm going over the edge of the petal underneath, that's fine. It makes your job easier. You don't have to go back in and get the backs of your brush embroidery because they are raised, like I said. And you just want to kind of, or not kind of, you totally want to follow the line of your brush embroidery and bring it just down to where the royal icing ends. I would not come in to where your fondant is and there is no royal ice, or no no royal icing, excuse me. And just go all around your cupcake and paint your brush embroidery. So I will finish this up and we will look at them when I come back. So as you can see, we are finished, and I brought back in the gum paste peony cupcake. I realized that we did not do a tutorial on that. I will be doing a tutorial on peonies. This is a little bit more involved, and I wanted to start out by showing you an easier way to do a similar, I mean, obviously it's not as realistic as this one, but it's beautiful and it will get you an amazing wow factor. So here are my peony cupcakes. I hope you enjoy the tutorial.